सैटरडे होता राइट?
Always on Saturday.
हाँ हमेशा. I was confident, मैं ही confused हो गया.
So let me show the assignment that was given last week.
सब लोगों ने assignment कर लिया राइट?
Yeah, everybody, you're on speakerphone, so you can ask yourself.
I didn't do it, so don't worry.
I will bug some of those, for the assignments, how they did it.
Oh, I didn't do it. I'm going to do it tomorrow. I'm going to sit and go to bootstrap.com and then search it out and then do it. And then I can share with you.
Sure.
This one.
This is the last week, sir?
Yeah.
Okay.
Last week, the assignment was to add a new product using the screen and then be able to see the newly added products in the table.
There's so many assignments, right? Which one we are talking about? I'm opening my email.
Yeah, the assignment that was there for this week, for last week.
Okay.
If I come to product, so we were working on the query.
Like, did you use navbar for that one?
Yeah, the navbar.
Actually, I tried that, but it was not working. Then I used something else like a HTML action link. But I think that's not for this one, right? Navbar was not working.
So
I'll try again.
Okay, let's check that. Maybe it's because of the Bootstrap clash. So which version of Bootstrap are you using?
Latest one you gave.
The latest
Yeah.
one. Okay. Now with that latest one, there are some changes that are needed in the navigation bar. We need to make sure that you have those changes. So does it look like this?
So there are 4 assignments, right? Assignment 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Which one we are talking about? 5 assignments.
We're talking about the latest one.
The latest.
So there are 5 assignments. Assignment 5?
Yeah.
This is about being able to add a product to the database. Being able to send information about when you add a product to the database.
Okay. So I'm looking at assignment 1, 2, 3. Define employee class.
This is assignment that was sent on
2 weeks back, and then
12/9.
last week again one added one.
Yeah, assignment 6.
Assignment 6. I can see assignment 5.
Yeah, the assignment 6 is right on the top.
Okay.
Some other classes there, right?
Yeah.
I used that one now.
Okay.
That one was working.
Okay. Now this is, so does your layout file, do you have your action links like this? Your layout file?
Action link, that's what I declared class is breadcrumb.
Okay, you use breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I have to do it because there's no jobs on SharePoint development I am seeing here. All are all .NET C#.
Yeah. Okay. Now, if I run this application, so what I did is on for product, I came here and I said product. So this is the syntax for at html.action link is the name of the link. What is the action method name and what is the controller name? So the action method name is product. The controller name is home and the link name is product. So that's why we are seeing it here. Now, if you see, in my controller, I have product as a as a method. So that's the one that will get called once I click that menu. So if I click this, we'll go to product, and the corresponding view for product is. If I want to know what is the view for this, if I right click and I say go to view, then it will go to the corresponding view. So the corresponding view that I've defined is product.cshtml.
Right.
And this product.cshtml has all the information, the HTML information along with the bootstrap classes, and it has a save button in the bottom to be able to save the information. So that's the save button that we're seeing here. Then what I've done is there is also a concept of partial views, which we haven't talked about. I have added a partial view here. So a partial view is like a
where the layout is there's a partial view option also where you click that, right?
When you add a view, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So partial view is something that, let's say that it's like a reusable view, and you can, if I define one partial view, I can use it in multiple pages. That's why you have a partial view. So one view can be made up of multiple partial views if you want, or you could have one monolithic view. View.
Okay.
I'll show you as I'm doing this example. I'll show you how that works. Now I have defined a JS file called product.js. What am I doing in that? Let's see. And I place that product.js in the scripts folder, just like order.js. We've done a product.js, and then on button save click. Right, this is a jQuery syntax. So button btn save. What is btn save?
Save button.
Save button. The idea of the save button. Right. So that's the idea of the save button. So we're saying on click, do this function.
Right.
Now, what does this function do? Well, I really don't need this one. Get rid of this one. I'm forming I'm forming something like this. Var form data equal to, I'll open the flower brackets, and I'm saying product ID in quotes, colon, hash product ID dot val. What does this mean?
The value of product ID.
Right, value of product ID. And where is product ID? Product ID is a ID in the HTML form.
Forms, yeah.
Whatever the user enters in this here, that's the value that will get. That's the value we are trying to capture here when we say dot val. Got it? Similarly, prod name and unit of measure, and then unit price and available quantity. All this I'm capturing, and I'm creating an object out of it. Remember, this is how objects. This is an object in JavaScript, right? Or name of the object is form data equal to flower brackets. The object property name, the value, property name, value, so on. Then I'm doing my AJAX call. So I'm saying URL is home/add product. Home is, what is home?
Home is the home controller. That's the.
And what is add product?
Add product is a URL.
Action. It's the
For
action.
the action, yeah.
So let's go and check whether we have an add product action method in our code or not. So if I go to home controller, I have an add product action method. So I go with this. I have an add product action method in my controller. And then I'm doing a post. Then I'm saying data colon. I'm again saying, form data colon JSON dot stringify of form data. Now this can be any name. I just gave a name. It can be form values, right? I can say form values colon JSON dot stringify. What does JSON dot stringify do? It is JSON dot stringify is a piece of, it is a defined function. Stringify is a function which is defined on a constant called JSON. These are all defined by JavaScript itself, not something that I have written or invented.
The data in that format, right?
what it will do is it will convert this object into a string format. Because what we want to do, we want to be able to send this to the controller. So what I'm doing is, rather than I'm combining this into a string, and I'll be sending it to the, I'll be posting it to the, controller. So if you see, the controller method is taking a string as input. So I'm going to change this. You have to match the name. So if you're making this form values, you have to have here also form values. Otherwise, it won't understand. Now, if I did not stringify, what was the other option I could have done?
Serialized.
Why am I stringifying it? Can you try to guess?
We are converting to string because there is semicolon.
String
If I don't convert to string, what is the other option that I have? If I have to send values from here to
integers, right?
Well, my goal is to be able to send all this information, right?
Yeah.
I should be able to send all this information that's in the UI. I'm getting from the UI. I want to send it to the controller, which is on the server side, right? If I don't do a stringify, then I will have to define so many parameters. I'll have to say prod ID is a string. I'll imagine if I have 20 values, then I'm having 20 parameters, and it becomes a nightmare. Normally, for a function, it is not a good practice to do more than 5 input parameters. You don't want to go more than 5. Right?
5 is also too much.
5 is also too much. Ideally, you want to be able to have 1 or
2 or
3.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say string form values. Form values, yeah, that's what we have. And then once the result comes back, I'm doing a console.log of the result. Okay, now the next step is, what are we doing in add product? What I'm doing is I'm inserting a record into the database, and then I'm returning true once that insert is successful. So my JSON, my result will contain a value called true. Why am I returning true? I'm indicating that it is a success. So I could like put a check here saying if result equal to true, then window dot, generally you don't do window dot alert, or just for this I'll say alert insert is successful. Typically the way you would do it is you in real applications, what you do is you don't want to do window dot alert. In the product.cs HTML, I will define another div here, or in the top. Let's define it in the top. Div ID equal to message, and then I'll say if my result is true, I will say dollar. What's dollar?
jQuery.
jQuery.
And then hash.
Hash, correct. And then message dot inner text equal to that is successful. Okay.
Double S is successful.
Double S. Grammar is important.
It's a string, right? So it doesn't matter.
So the client should not think you don't know English, so you should. So now I'm going to run this, and then we're going to go into the code that does the insert and save. Like when I'm saying I'm doing an insert into a database, we need to understand how that actually works, right? Now let's go run this guy first.
So now one more thing, Ashwant.
Yeah.
That's the product we are specifying. The object is PROD. We are storing everything on the PROD, right? Instance.
Yeah.
And deserializing object means what?
I will tell you that.
Okay.
That's a good question. Let me run this first, okay? So right now, let me also launch my database so that we can see the values in the database. So we need to go to SQL Server Management Studio, launch it. Click connect. Go to databases. Our database is inventory. I say new query. So inventory has 3 tables that we defined the other day. So right now, I want to go and query on my product table. So I'm going to say select star from product. There are 2 records in it. So let's run our application now. Run. I go to product. I have a breakpoint here. I hit the breakpoint. Now my view is loaded. You can see that the table, the bottom has those 2 records that is in the database. Now what is the test that we are going to do? We're going to add a new product. I'll call it 543. Product name is cheese bread and egg. Unit of measure is LB. Price is $3. And then what is the total quantity? I want 100 cases of egg. I'm going to say save. When I click save, my data will get all these values. My idea is to take all these values and post it to the add product controller action method so that I can save it into the database. So I have a breakpoint here, and then let's click on save. My breakpoint is hit now. Let's go check for form values. Right now, form values is null. So something's wrong. Let's check. Form values.
The bracket says stringify form data.
Yeah, which is this one. Form values. Form values. I'm going to go to product, run it, PR 524, product name is egg, measure is LB, unit price is $5, product quantity is 100 cases. Okay. So now, what happened here is that whatever so whatever value, whatever name you are giving here to the object, we have to give the same name here in the when we are receiving that object. So you see here, when we are receiving the string, the name of the string is form data, and then that string has been that object has been converted to a long string. So if I do this, see, this is the same object, but it's in the form of a string. It has been sent as a form of a string. So so this value can be anything, doesn't matter. But this value, this name has to match with the name that we're specifying here. Okay. Now what I do is, I got this as a string. I'm using an inbuilt C# object called JSON convert. Now JSON convert is part of Newtonsoft Newtonsoft.json. So Newtonsoft.json is a reference that is already added for us by default. So if you go to reference, we'll already have that DLL, Newtonsoft.json. So all of you will have it. So we are saying using that. Now that has been provided to us so that we can convert from string to an object, object to a string, and so on. So that conversion operations that DLL is doing, it makes our life easy. So that's why we are using that DLL. Okay, I'm saying JSON convert dot deserialize this data. So the method is deserialize object. Now which object? The name of the object is product.
Product.
And what is the data I have to deserialize? Form data. Now once I deserialize it as an object of type product, I need to save it somewhere. So here I have defined object called prod of type product.
Yeah.
Let me make sure you're getting it. So if you see here, product is a class. Now where is this class? I have defined this class in the models. I've defined a class, simple class I have defined. Now
Yes.
the reason I've defined the class is because I have to be able to receive that data and store that somewhere. Right? Unless I need to store that, otherwise to be able to do something with that data, I need to first store it somewhere. So I'm storing it as a object in the object prod, which is of type product. Product is a class. Make sense? See, normally what do we say? We say product prod equal to new product. Right? This is how we normally bring something to life. We bring an object to life. That's how we bring it to life. The other way to bring an object to life, you can also bring it like this. So what this method will do is, deserialize object internally, it is actually doing a new and assigning the values of form data to that all those fields, and then giving us an output of an object of type prod, which is of type product. That's what it's doing.
Right.
I have to run this again. Hi, Vinita, how are you?
We can't hear you.
Huh?
She's speaking on the mute, I guess.
Okay. Now see here, I'm going to do this product addition again. Egg, LB, $5, available quantity, 200 cases. Save. Okay, this time we didn't put a breakpoint also. Okay, that product got added actually. So let's look at it. Let's add another one.
Let's add the unit price as a string, not the integer.
Ask that again.
Let's add the unit price as a string, not 5. Let's put ABC.
Because we have defined unit price as a.
Does it take it or not? Does it throw error? I don't know.
Yeah, it will throw an exception. That's a little assignment for you. So cheese, bread, egg, and donuts. Unit of measure LB. Unit price is, let's say, $5 or $3. quantity is 100. And I click on save. We got the values. So let's go step by step. I'm doing an F10. Okay. Now what did I do after that? I did TBL product tprod equal to new TBL product. Now what is that? I will explain that. Let's go step by step. I go down, 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 I go to here. Now I'm using a concept called general repository and unit of work. We'll look at that. Now this will so this will do the job of insert, this will do the job of save. Let's go ahead and do that. We'll do a function F10, inserted, saved, and then I'm returning a JSON of true. And let me do an F5. Okay. At this point, my record should be added to the database. We are not seeing it in the table because we need to refresh the screen to be able to see to the table, but it should be there in the database. Let's go check the database. So our donuts got added into the table. I want to see the values in the table. Let's do a refresh. So I do go hit and I get, and I see donuts now. So this below table is a table that's going and pulling data from that table. The top portion is to add the data into the table. Now, let's look at what's happening within this method. To be able to insert data into the database, now Microsoft has come up with a concept called ORM, called Object Relation Model. It is a concept that's there in multiple languages. C# also has it. In Java, it's called it's done using Hibernate. Whereas in Microsoft Stack, which is the .NET Stack, it is Entity Framework. So the ORM is called Entity Framework, whereas in the Java side, it's called Hibernate. What we'll see now is we will see what is the ORM. So this is so before ORM came into picture, there was how the way we connect to the database is we use a technology called ADO.NET. Some people may have heard about it. We still use ADO.NET, but it is we can't see it. Internally it uses ADO.NET, but we can't see it. What we really deal with is we deal with the ORM, the Object Relation Mapper. Now the one that we will be looking at is Entity Framework. That's the name of the ORM that we will be looking at. And Hibernate is another one. In Java, it's called Hibernate. Connect to SQL Server. Yeah, SQL in .NET. All right. It makes our life easy. So what happens is with an ORM is that when you have to save something into the database, you have to make a connection. Then you have to send the values. So there are a series of steps that will have to be done. But with ORM, it makes our life easy. What it does is once we add Entity Framework to our solution, it adds certain classes using which we can do the database operations very conveniently. So database operations are called CRUD operations. So create, read, update, and delete. So those are the primary database operations that happen, and for that is what we use the ORM. Benefits of ORM, yeah, it's like cleaner code, and we don't have to worry about how to fetch the data from the database. We call a dot get and it gets it. Similarly, we do a dot insert, it inserts it. So it makes our life easy. Managing that whole interaction with the database is what ORM does for us. Now, what happens with ORM is, let's actually do one thing. In the solution, I'm going to show you how to add the ORM thing. So here, I already added another project, but let's add a third project. So you can see in your application or in your own solution file in your computer, you will have sample MEC app. But you can see there is another one that I added, and this one I added for database interactions. So I'm calling it sample MEC app.dal, which is data access layer. Now, along with me, I want you to also do it so that you become familiar with it. So can you open your solution file that you have for ASP.NET MVC, and let's do it together.
Okay.
So what you do is in the solution, you right click on the solution name and say add, say new project. You say new project, we want a class library. So we will go to class library .NET Framework.
Are we opening a new project or we are opening the current we were working on?
Yeah, it's the same solution. So the hierarchy is a solution, and
Okay.
that you can have multiple projects.
Okay, so one MVC application, I can just right click on there.
Okay, you right click on the solution, like here, like the way I'm doing it, and say add. So this is the solution name. These are projects. These are solution. This is a solution. Solution is the umbrella.
Okay.
It holds projects. Like imagine like how home and rooms in the home.
Okay.
So solution is the home, and projects are the rooms in the home.
Add new project.
Yeah, add new project, and then select class library .NET Framework.
On the side, what is it? Visual.
C#.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then class library .NET
Framework.
Do we have to rename as .dal?
Yeah, it is for easy understanding, for readability purposes. So somebody looking at your project will know, okay, this is my data access layer that does the interactions with the database.
So I put DAL like that.
Yeah, you can give it the name of the solution, like sample MEC app.dal. I'm going to say, just for, because I already have that name, I'm going to say sample MEC app1.dal. Okay, and then click OK. So what it will do is now it will create a new project for you under the solution. It created a third one for me. For you, it will be the second one. Now, next step will be right click on the solution and then add. Sorry, so right click on the project. So in the project that you just created, right click on the project and then click add and say new item. Now we are adding something called a entity data model. It's called ADO.NET entity data model. Select that and give it a name. Let's say inventory inventory model. Call it inventory model. Okay, and then click add. As soon as you do that, there is another pop-up window that will come up called the entity data model wizard. The job of this wizard is to be able to take us through a series of steps where it will make us connect to the database and create entity models for the tables that we have defined. This is an important thing to understand. So there is something called entity models. When we say models, it means classes. Entity classes that it will create for the tables that are there in the database. So let's what you will select is EF designer from database. Now this is like to generate entity classes. This the job of this whole wizard is to connect to the database and generate entity classes that we will be using when we are doing database operations. So this whole thing is actually happening because of entity framework.
This is how we are connecting with the database.
This is how we connect with the database if we are using entity framework. The other way is ADO.NET.
ADO.NET, yeah.
It's an older way, but internally it uses ADO.NET. It doesn't show us that. They have again built another layer of abstraction to make our lives easy. Just like we saw JavaScript jQuery, similar kind of a concept where ADO.NET was there in the previous versions. Now they have built and made our lives more easy. They have built another layer called entity framework on top of it. So there are a couple of options here. One is entity framework designer from database, which means that if you want to create those entity classes from the database. Now, in our case, what happened is we already defined some tables in the database. That may not always be the case. You may want to be able to generate tables by writing code in C#. That is also possible.
Yeah.
So that is called code first.
Instead of data first approach.
Yeah, instead of database first. So code first is, there is also, you can do code first. There are options to doing code first. But we will look at generating the entity classes from the database. So the tables are already there. Yeah. So what the steps will be that we go create the tables in the database, create the relationships between the tables, then come and generate the entity classes using entity framework. Make sense?
Okay. So we are trying to interact with the database basically, right?
Right now we are setting up the plumbing between the application and the database. Okay, so before that, let me cancel this out. I want to make sure that you guys have something. So in the references, I want you to add entity framework. Add. Maybe I think it does on its own. So let's do that again. So I come here, I say, again, I come here, I say add data.NET entity data model. Let's say inventory model. I say add. Again, we've come back to the entity data model wizard. I say EF designer from database.
Entity data model, right? What did we name it?
ADO.NET entity data model.
We named it inventory model.
Inventory model.
So now I click next. Now it's asking me which database do you want me to connect to?
So we'll click on new string.
The new connection.
New connection. Sorry.
So
Microsoft SQL Server.
yeah. So in server name. So it is select your server name, which is your local server. So your database right now is residing locally on your machine. In real production scenarios, the database will be in a separate machine. Right now, I'm going to select the server name.
It's not giving me anything.
It's local host, maybe. It's not loading.
It's not able to automatically fetch it. So what we can do then is we will manually put in this. So my database server name is laptop-ll1qr OMT / SQL Express. That's the name. So I'm going to say laptop hyphen.
We can copy and paste, right? Right click, properties, copy.
Properties. Yeah. Paste it. I click anywhere outside, or I come here and click. Then see, it automatically got the tables in the database. You can, so you guys also can do it as I'm doing it. That you get some hands-on. So now I'm going to select. What's our table database name? Let's see. If you go to your SQL Server Management Studio, these are all the database we have right now. Employee, inventory. And it has master model, MSDB, TempDB. Those are all, I think, system DBs. Yeah, they're all system databases. So, but we don't want system databases. We want our own databases. So we will select inventory because that's where our tables are. Correct? So, what are you saying?
I don't know if I opened the right application. We formed the database last time, right? But
Yeah.
I opened the one MVC application where I was working for the homework, and I started working on that. So I think I'm not linked to database.
But your database is set up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we want. No, now we are connecting your application to the database.
Yeah, I have so many things on my computer. I don't know where it is. I keep doing stuff and
So your
practicing.
database name, so SQL Server Management Studio, correct? That's where you have to go. So this is the name of your server.
Okay.
66QLP properties. Copy this. And then back here. And then paste it here. Okay. Now, if I come here, up all the
And we'll
databases.
choose inventory.
Inventory.
So we typed inventory, right?
I'm so glad I didn't remove this database. It's open.
Manish, you're able to you're able to get it?
Yes, yes.
Okay, sounds good. And then once we've selected the database, then I click on OK. So now there is a bunch of information that got generated. Good. Save connection settings in app.config as. There will be a name that will show, which is good. We don't want to change that. Click OK. Click Next.
Okay.
It's asking, do you want to use Entity Framework 6 or 5? We'll say 6.
Okay.
Click Next. Now, it gives you a screen where you can select the tables for which we need to generate the entity classes. So I need entity classes for all 3 tables.
So I have added 2 tables. Suppose I will add third table afterward. Can I come back and do the change?
Yes.
I just have.
You can.
Yeah, I have 3. Yeah.
You can select 3. You can select 1. So right now we are putting data in the TBL product table. So what you really need is the TBL product table. Okay. And I click on Finish. Now it's processing. You can see it's spinning. So let's see what it's actually doing once the spinning is done. What it has actually done. All right. Now I'll go to Solution Explorer. In my project, you can see there is a file called inventory model.edmx. that is generated. Expand that. So inventory model.edmx is something that was generated after we have run that wizard, and this has been this whole thing is what will help us with database interactions from C# code. Now, what does it contain? Let's go inside. Some of the things. Let's go into inventory model.context.cs file.
This TT.
Okay, so expand that. It says like this, right? So
Yeah.
expand that. Then you'll find this .cs file in that. Double click that.
Oh yeah. Inventory model.context.tt and inventory model designer.cs.
Yeah, but then here, do you see this?
Yeah, inventory model context.cs. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
I don't have inventory model context.cs.
So, can you see my screen?
Yes, I do.
Are you seeing inventory model.context.tt?
Yes, yes.
So expand that.
Expand.
Yes, I can see now.
Okay. Now double click on inventory model.context.cs.
Okay.
Now what we see here are two important things. One is DB context. Second is DB set. Now what is DB context? DB context is the class in entity framework that lets us do fetch, insert, delete, update operations. CRUD operations. What is DB set? DB set is a property within DB context that again helps us do CRUD operations. So it is a combination of DB context and DB set using which we will make CRUD operations.
And DB set is what, Roshan?
It is a property. So DB set in combination with DB context is what helps us with CRUD operations. So you can see there is a DB set that got generated for each table. So DB set. So if you see here, if you see the slide, DB context, it helps with interactions between entity classes and database. What is entity classes? You haven't seen that yet. Entity classes are classes that here for each table there is a .cs file that got generated. If I double click that, I can see that all the columns of that table in the database have now a representation in C#. If I go and look at so this is the order table, right? Let's say we go look at the order table. This is the order table. I expand columns. What are the columns I have? Order ID, name, order date, product ID, vendor ID, all those fields are represented in the form of C# here, in the form of a class. Now, the tables in the database are also, the other name is entities. When it comes to C#, we call them entity classes. This is what it has automatically generated for us. We haven't done anything. You can see in the top, there is some comment saying this code is automatically generated. Similarly with all the other CS files. So for all the tables that you selected in the wizard, the corresponding entity classes will be generated in C#, which will help us make CRUD operations.
So we can write now CRUD, this thing code and all.
Yeah.
For that, what do we do? Like do we write it here or what?
I'll show you that. We'll be looking at that part.
Okay.
Now you can see here DB context is interactions between entity classes and database. That's what it helps. DB set, it it helps again with CRUD operations. DB context contains the DB set properties. So DB class represents an entity set. When it says represents an entity set, what it means is that if I go to inventory model.context.cs again, you can see DB set. It is a set of that table. So this TBL order is, I just now said it is an entity class, correct? So let's say TBL order, it's an entity class. This is one class. In a table, how many rows can be there? Is there a restriction? One or many, right? So which means that this one class represents how many rows? Any?
8.
8.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
13.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12.
Okay, these are columns.
Sorry.
But how many rows? N number of rows. What about this? If I write like this? Data dot collection. So what is this? My order table list TBL order. Okay, I just wrote some code. What is this? What does this represent? What does this mean? Okay, what is TBL order? Just TBL order. What is it?
Table of order.
It's a class, right? It's a class. When you say C#, it is a class. From a C# point of view, from a database point of view, it is a table. But when it comes to C#, it is just a class. So we go to TBL order, right? Yeah, right, it's right here. So TBL order is a class, right? I did a list of TBL order. What does it, when you do a list of TBL order, what does it mean? Objects, collection, more than one, right? It's a collection, more than one. That is what this means. So this, I just did this example. I'm going to undo this. So this DB set is a collection of TBL order. TBL order is one class. Means it can represent how many rows?
N number of rows.
One row. Because it is only one class, right? Unless I have a collection, it is not more than one row. This DB set is it's saying it is a collection now of TBL order. So that DB set will help me operate on those rows, multiple rows in that table. So DB context along with DB set will help me to manipulate those multiple rows in the table. So that's what this definition says. DB set class represents an entity set. Doesn't say just entity, it says set. Set means a collection. It represents an entity collection that can be used for CRUD operations. Okay. Now we'll look at. So we generated the the classes got generated. If I go back here, the entity classes got generated. The inventory model.context.cs has two important things: DB context and DB set. Need to keep that in mind. And then if I double click on the EDMX file, you can see here it gives a nice database like view in my C#. With the relationships it's giving, including the relationships it's giving. It's a representation of the database in C#. That's what it is doing, Entity Framework. Whatever is there in the database, it is giving that representation here. Now, if I come here to my database, and if I say diagrams, new database. Let's see, add. See, this is all I'm doing it in the database side. There's no C# here. Now, what happened here? It created this representation in the database, similar kind of representation entity framework is created for us on the C# side. You see that mapping that it's doing, whatever is there on the database, it's kind of replicating that on the C# side to make our life easy when it comes to interacting with the database, when it comes to doing CRUD operations. That's what's happening. Now, one question you asked, Manish, was that now I added, let's say I have only 2 tables. If I want to add a 3rd table later, how do I do it? So I come to the EDMX, I come to that EDMX, I double click it, it will give me this view. I right click on that, I say update model from database. And it takes me back to that wizard. And it takes me back to a wizard where now I can add more tables if there are more tables. Since the tables are already there, it's not showing me. But if there was a new one that I add, it will show up. Okay.
Instead of adding there in SQL Server, we can add here, right?
Instead of adding, see, you can also create tables.
Yeah, there.
You can see there are 2 ways you can do it. One is you create it in SQL Server using SQL Server Management Studio, and then you do a generation of the entity classes from the database, which is database first, it's called. The second way is code first, which means that you write the code in C# and you can generate the tables in SQL Server. There's also another way, third way, which is generate database from model. Even from here, you can generate the database. So typically, the 2 approaches that are followed is, one is define the tables in the database first, and then generate the entity model so that now you can communicate between C# and database. The other way is you define your entity classes in C# and then generate the database from that.
When we follow the database first approach, there are a lot of errors and it's very hard to integrate it. Like if we are working as a team and we go on GitHub,
yeah,
I think it causes a lot of errors and all that. I don't know, a lot of difficulties. But your first approach is much better, right?
But you're writing your own project, right?
Yeah.
As long as you're working on your own project.
No, I'm just saying hypothetically, like database.
Oh, when in an actual production.
Yeah.
No, I mean, we use database first.
Which I like much better, easier than code.
Yeah, and there's no problem with that.
Really?
It works.
Which one you use? Which one you prefer? The easier and the simpler and better?
I think database first is easier.
Yeah.
Because code first, you have to first write all the classes and then generate the tables.
I don't like that.
So all are .NET developers here?
All are what?
.NET developers?
No, we are not. We are learning like you. You are the most experienced person on the team, Mani.
No. .NET side, I don't know. Only Ashwant knows what I know, but you guys also know.
We are just learning.
Okay. Now we have generated the entity classes. We saw what is .edmx, and we saw what does .context.cs contain. It contains 2 things, DB context and DB set. Now, good. It has laid the plumbing now. It has, from bringing the water from the city to the home, the plumbing is there.
The main thing. The water. We can survive.
Now, yeah, plumbing is there. Now, the taps have to be put and in your home so that you can use the water, right? So that part now we have to do. Yeah. So it is bringing the water. It has laid the connection from city to the home. Now we have to start. What is that we need to do to start being able to use the water? which means that being able to insert records, fetch records, delete, update operation, what we have to do. That is what we will look at now. What I have done is I have created, I'm just going to close this. So this one which I created this morning. So I have defined two classes called generic repository and unit of work. Now let's look at each of them. I have defined a folder. You can create a folder called implementation, and in that you can add. Right click on it. Once you create a folder, okay, right click on your project, say add new folder, then name that folder as implementation, and within that folder, right click and say new item, and then make it a class, and call that generic repository.cs. I mean, you can give it any name, but again, keep in mind the names we give is for readability purposes. Somebody looking at the name should know, okay, what this class is doing or what this file is doing.
So I'm making a new folder on my Dell this thing project.
Yeah.
And then what do I name it?
Implementation.
Now we have to add another CS file, right?
Yeah, we are creating another CS file. So create a file called generic repository .cs.
That's a class.
Implementation.
That's a class. All CS files are classes.
Okay. Generic repository.
So the folder is implementation, and right click and form a class on that.
Yeah.
And then, okay.
Call it generic repository. So there is a concept called a repository pattern in C#. Now, and then there is a concept called unit of work pattern. So these two are design patterns actually. So this is a little, as you become a designer, an architect, that's when you get into design patterns. But it is good for you to understand right now that how it works, and you will be using this to do the CRUD operations.
Okay.
So I added two CS file, unit of work and generic repository.
So let's look at generic repository first. So generic repository is, so you can see this class, when you added the class, you would just be seeing something like this. Class, generic repository, right? Something like this you are seeing.
For me, it's blank. Yeah, class generic repository.
Yeah, it's blank. So it was blank for me also. I filled it up. What happens is that this class, generic repository, we are defining so that we can do. Okay, first let's understand what is a repository. A repository is, what is a repository in general?
Where you store.
Store,
Yeah.
right? So when you say storing something, where do you store in the application?
The repository.
In the repository. So like in the database, right? Yeah. So database. So anything when you say store means it's in the database. Now each of these tables, if I have to say, okay, I can in another word, if I have to use another word, I can say PBL order is a repository. In general English, if I am talking, but in the SQL context, it is a table. Now that is the concept that we are borrowing here, saying repository. Each repository is connected to a table. Now when I say generic repository, it is connected to all tables. Now when I say generic repository, what are the common operations that can happen on all tables? CRUD. Very good. Now what does CRUD mean? Fetch. What does fetch mean? Get. Okay. Insert. Delete. Update. All tables will have these four operations.
Basically CRUD.
Basically CRUD. Now, how do I do these CRUD operations? What am I using in this class? I am using inventory entities. What is inventory entity? So if you go into your, I go into my inventory model.context.cs. If I click it, I have inventory entities. Inventory entities is a class that derives from DB context. Earlier we said we are going to use DB context and DB set to help us do CRUD operations. So even you will have a class in your, if you look at, can you tell me what is the name you are seeing in your file? Inventory model.context.cs. What is the name you are seeing? What is the class that derives from DB context?
Inventory entities.
Inventory entities. You're seeing the same. Okay, good. The same inventory entities is what I am referring to in the generic repository class. And I am giving a name to, so I have still not given life to INV context. I will give life to INV context if I do a new. Dot new equal, if I do this. If I do equal to new inventory entities, then my INV context is an object. If I do this, what does it mean? What is INV context?
Combination of
Inventory.
INV context is a name of the object, but the object doesn't have any memory allocated. It is still an object, but I can't use it. Okay, so let's come here, right? It's good. It's important that you understand that. If I come to home controller, I'm just going to another file so that I can give you an example. Here I have product, right? I'll say product, prod, colon, semicolon. Let's say one. Okay. Do it outside. Okay. I can give it, let's say I can say private. Then I have private. Then I can say one equal to, I can say prod one equal to prod. Okay. What is the difference between this and this?
Both are same.
Private, we can only access it in that class
Yeah.
because it's privately access modifier.
Yeah.
And here it's like you have, like you said, it's come to life because you have created an object.
Yeah.
So you've allocated a memory. So basically, prod one, the new prod is like you've created an object.
Sure.
One is private, one is public. Both are same, right?
It is still private. I mean, it's still prod one. So let's say I comment this out and I do prod one dot prod equal to field prod one. Prod one is a class. So if I index of this, What happened? Object reference not set to an instance of an object. Now, prod1 equal to new product. Prod1 dot prod ID equal to test1. F10. Did it complain? The earlier case I did prod1 dot prod ID equal to test1. It said object not set to an not set to an instance. Means we didn't do a new.
Yeah.
If you don't do a new, see, prod1 is still the same. See, a prod1 I have defined here as type product. This is a definition. But to give life to prod1, I have to do a new. If I don't do a new, I can't assign any values to it. That's the difference I was trying to point out to you here. So if I go back to this code.
Basically, new means we are creating an instance of the object, right?
Of the class.
Of the class, correct.
Class
So
can be object.
now? What is INV context? It's a reference to inventory entities. Just like here, right? For prod. What is prod1? It is a reference of product, but it doesn't have any life. There's no memory. So I just created, it knows, if I say INV context, it knows that it is of type inventory entities, but that's all it knows. Now, what I do is, okay, what is this? And then I also defined DP set. I said DP set of P entity. I'll tell you what does this mean. DP set. What is DP set? The small DP set. What is it?
Database connection.
Well, it is a reference of this type, right? Whatever this means. What is INV context? It is a reference of inventory entities of this class. Now, DP set is a property, right? It is a property. It is a property here in inventory model, right here. If you see, I showed you that DB set is a property. Now, what is generic repository here? What is this? What is this line? What is this called? I mean, this highlighted area. What is it called? Constructor. Why is it a constructor?
Because we are declaring the fields and the values, and then
it has the same name as the class.
We are invoking the constructor invokes the object whenever we want to invoke the class.
Yeah, constructor is something that has the same name as the class. It is the first thing that will be called when an object is created of this class.
To instantiate the class, right?
So you don't need to define a constructor. Even if I comment this out, it will still work. It will have a default constructor. Every class has a default constructor, but you can define every class that you have or you define will have a constructor without parameters. But here I am defining a constructor with parameters. I can define n number of constructors in the same class. I can do generic repository. I'll say string. It'll be happy. It doesn't mind. So you can define n number of constructors in for a class. Now, depending on our need, we do a constructor. Now, what am I doing in this constructor? I am passing a parameter of type inventory entities. And what am I doing inside the constructor? I'm assigning, what am I doing inside the constructor? Values to
the parameters. And then
I'm assigning values to these, to this, and to this, right? Anything that you want to, so this is like, I can do this dot, the same. So anything that says this dot means you're referring to object or a variable in the same class. The INV context is a class, right? Or is a variable of type inventory entities in the same class. And whatever I'm passing as a parameter, I'm assigning that to this. So I want to do it as soon as this object is created. I want to be able to assign a value. Once I assign a value, then again I'm doing this dot db set. What's db set?
Again, it's an object.
It's a reference of this type. It has not come to life yet, right? So that's why I'm calling it a reference. The reference of this type. When I say this dot db set equal to inventory context dot set of t entity, then this will come to life. See, this is like I can do. This is like saying this dot db set equal to new db set t entity, or I can say this. In some cases, it doesn't even accept this. So that's why you have to do it this way. Okay. So normally for the classes that we define, ourselves we define, we can say it. But in some cases, it won't allow you because their definition is different. But what we are doing is, we are doing, so if I come here, I get a set of methods that I can do here. I didn't define INV CTX. I did define inventory entities. It is something that entity framework has defined and given me. I didn't create this class. This was auto-generated. This is the one that is inventory model at context.cs. It has created a class called inventory entities that derives from DB context. All this was created by entity framework. What I'm doing is I'm using these in the generic repository class. Now, generic repository class is my class. I am defining that. But inventory entities, entity framework defined it. I'm using it. Now, the entity framework, the class that it gave me, inventory entities, if I do a dot on that class, I get a lot of methods that I can, that it shows. One of the methods I'm using is a set method. When I use a set method, this DB set comes to life. I say dot set of T entity. Question is, what is T entity? There is T entity here, there is T entity in the definition of the class. Normally we don't do this, right? We just do this.
So are we not going fast or slow?
So you tell me.
Once you don't do the homework, it's very complicated, man.
Okay. I want it to be complicated so that I want to push you. I want to push you so that you go back and you do it.
So
unless you're very true. Unless you practice,
This is
Yes.
basic,
unless you do it, it is going to get difficult.
Manish, this is basic C#, constructor, parameters, values, variables, objects, class. So
it's basic once you practice or once you do every day, right?
yeah, C is slides. It's very self-explanatory.
So the generic repository and DB context, DB set is all new. I haven't covered that. This is the first time I'm covering.
But rest of them are C# principle.
Rest of them are C#. It will take some time to understand, Manish. This is a little, it's a little complicated. It is. It will take a few times to wrap your head around this one. But
How
the idea is that you take this idea, you go and try it, and then you come and ask me questions saying, "Hey, what is this? Why it is like this? I am doing it, but I don't understand it. Explain it to me." Then I will explain it to you. I mean, I'm explaining it to you now, but even after this, I'm sure you will get some more doubts. Why it is the way it is. Normally, when we define a class, we say public class, generic repository, right? That's how all our classes are. When I go to product, I mean, this is the class that we define. We're saying public class product. Now we have added something extra here. What this means is that T entity is it's a template. It's a template, and what is that? Template. It is a template. The template is of type class. You will understand it when I show you
It's
the
a kind of
implementation.
structure.
So it means that T entity is you can apply these methods .get on any class that that implements general repository. Yeah, so it is a little difficult to understand, but just keep up with me. I will, as we do that example, I think you'll understand better.
Sure.
So this, okay, so this is a get operation, and this is insert operation, then this is delete, and this is update. So I won't go into what this means right now, because let's go to the example and then we'll come to this. And I think you'll be able to relate better. So what I'm going to do now is, so this is generic repository, and if I go to unit of work, now unit of work is something. Okay, so what is, so unit of work is another class that I am defining. I'm here, I'm saying inventory entities context equal to new inventory entities. Can I do this? Inventory entities is a class that entity framework created for me. I'm using it. Now, I'm saying private generic repository in angular brackets TBL product. And then I'm saying prod repository. Prod repository means product repository. I just gave a name. Now, when I do this, let's simplify it a little.
TBL product is a class, right?
TBL product is a class. TBL product is a class. Let's show you this. I think you will put new generic repository of context. Okay. Context. They cannot reference the non-static field. Okay. Go inside that. Okay, let me do this. X. Come inside. And I do prod repository equal to new. Okay. Now tell me. This, forget about all this, right? Let's just focus on let's just focus on line number 12 and line number 21 to 25. I'm saying private generic repository. Anything that shows in green is a class, right? It means a class. Is this a class? A class, yeah. Right? Which class is it? This class.
We created one, right?
We created one, generic repository. Now within the angular bracket, I'm saying TBL product. What is TBL product?
That's the object.
Another class. It becomes an object when you do a new. Otherwise, it's all classes.
Mm-hmm.
If I do a right click and I say go to definition, it will take me to the definition of the class. Who created this class? TBL product. Entity framework created, right? These are entity classes. I said private generic repository, angular brackets, TBL product, prod repository. What's prod repository? What is prod repository?
No.
I'll say this, prod 1. I'll say prod temp, or I'll say prod XYZ. Anything I can say. What's prod? What is this prod repository? What's prod XYZ repository? Okay, let's do this.
Can be for any product.
Private TBL product, prod rep. What does this mean? What's the difference between both of these? Okay. What does 14 mean? Tell me, what does 14 mean? And when I say what does it mean, like what am I writing here? Like what did I write here? Right? Each thing. What is private?
It's not open.
Modifier,
Access modifier. Good. What is TBL product?
class.
Class. What is prod rep?
We are giving. We can give any name, right?
Any name. I can give a T prod. What is T prod? It's a reference to the class.
Yeah.
It's like this one, right? I mean, if you go to the controller, what did we do here? We said private prod 1. Same thing. It's no different. It is a reference to this. If I come here, if I say T prod equal to TBL prod,
So that's
now what happened to T prod?
it came to life.
Came to life. It became an object now. Same thing. So here, private generic repository TBL product in angular brackets. Then I'm saying prod XYZ repository.
The bracket is confusing, right? In this case.
Bracket is confusing. Okay, good. So we will just for a moment you think this bracket is not there. Okay, it is just generic repository. If this bracket is not there, then what is generic repository?
For all the classes.
It is a class.
Class.
It is a class.
It's a class, and that's a reference then.
It's a reference to the class. As simple as that.
As simple as that.
Okay. Now we added the. You said that the brackets is confusing. Let's look at that.
So that's a type. That's a type of that one of the class. TBL class. TBL product is a class which is also can be generic repository represents all the classes. Represents a class. So TBL product is also a class. So that's what it's saying.
Generic repository is our own class, which we have defined. We are calling it generic repository because we want to define some actions that applies to all classes.
Okay.
For readability purposes, we are calling it generic repository. We can call it any name. I can call this generic repository 1. It will still work. But somebody may say, why you are calling it generic repository 1? What does it mean? When somebody looks at just generic repository, oh, you are having a class that does some generic operations. And it is called generic repository because it's dealing with database operations.
Okay.
Anything that says repository means dealing with database. Okay. That's the idea behind it. Now your question about what is this in Angular brackets? Why do we have this? See here the definition of the class. It is taking, in the definition of the class, it is taking something in the Angular bracket. It is not a normal class. If it was a normal class, I wouldn't have this. True?
Yep.
It just looks like this, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I have defined something here in Angular brackets. Now this is called, it is like we are giving it a template.
Okay.
So a template means a placeholder.
Yes.
So what is this T entity? T entity can be anything. So in this case, T entity is TBL product. What is TBL product? It is again a class. So see in the definition where T entity is a class. I'm giving you a generic placeholder. I can say T entity is, let's say, T entity is, I think, I can say anything. I mean, anything means I can make it other types also. But I am saying it is a class. Why we are doing it like this? Why do we have T entity? Why are we saying T entity is a class? Now, the reason we are saying that is because when we come to the home controller and when we are doing our CRUD operations,
the home controller chooses the template also, but it chooses a template for the views, not for the class.
It chooses for the view.
Yeah.
I mean, in reference to the interactions with the database, what happens is that let me back to prod repository. I am saying, let me expand this. Let's forget this guy. Is added. What is the difference between these two? This is a good. This kind of touches upon the concepts. This kind of it makes you think about the concept. So, what is the difference between these two? Line number 12 and line number 14 to 20. What is this? Any guess? If the angular is confusing you, let's let me put it this way.
That's the ternary operator, right? Return this. If it's true, then return that, right?
This is a ternary operator is single.
Yeah, that's
This
double.
is a double.
Yeah, I know. That's what my question was. I thought you made a mistake.
So, okay, I think. So let us say you don't have this. If the angular bracket is confusing you, think that there's no angular bracket and no TPL product. Okay. Now tell me. Let me write it. I'm going to get rid of this.
Get return this.
What is this? There are squigglies coming because we haven't defined the generic repository. We have defined generic repository as something that will take a template or a placeholder. That's why the squigglies are coming. But if generic repository was a normal class, what does this mean? These two, what does it mean? What is the combination? Okay, what is this and what is this? What is this doing?
Returning the value.
Returning the value. It has a return statement, so it's returning a value. So this is okay. Let me do this. Public.
I've never seen get with return.
Yeah.
Maybe I didn't pay attention.
So this one, if I think it will help if I show it in another case.
Same thing, semicolon, right?
Are you hearing voices or I'm hearing voices?
Product gets set. Private product prod 1 gets set. Yeah. You can call that number, the number that's on the. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. You're gonna need your head, yeah. Just get rid of that. When I was in kindergarten, so listen, when I was in kindergarten, the rickshaw used to come late. So my grandfather's finance company was near the school.
Yeah.
So we wanted to go and have Coca-Cola and eat pan and everything.
Yeah.
So the parents used to walk out. Now the teacher doesn't know. She won't allow little kids to walk out. So I used to hold hand of the parents and walk out to the school and then go walking half kilometer alone.
Oh.
Because why waste a rickshaw is late?
Yeah.
I don't want to wait for him. Common sense, you know, you have to do what you have to do.
That makes sense. So, what I did here, so I had this one. What is this? I have private, product, prod 1, get set. Or I can even make this public. Well, what does it mean? This is a property, right? This is a property. If I take the product definition, this is a bunch of properties. Let's say I do this, right click, I say convert to full property. What did it do? It took that one statement and broke it up into two. So earlier, before this syntax came, where you do public string prod ID get set, right? Just like in the bottom. This was written like this. So what this means is that to set a value to underscore prod ID is a variable or an attribute. You use properties. Properties are always public, but the variables are always private. So nobody should be able to go and access saying like this. So what happens is if I make an instance of product, let's say if I do product prod 1 new product prod 1 dot. Can I see this? Why? Private. So if I have to set a value of underscore prod ID, right? What do I have to do? I have to do
Get set prod ID.
There's already a get set here. That's
Okay.
defined. This.
This.
So I have to say prod ID equal to 1, 2, 3, 4. What happens when I say this? It is internally saying set underscore prod ID equal to value. So whatever value was assigned, assign that to prod ID. That is what it means. So same thing, if I have to extend it to here, I go to unit of work. I have private generic repository, prod repository, public generic repository, prod repository, P capital. Compare it with prod, P capital. And return, get, return this dot prod repository.
So prod repository is a variable then, right?
Prod repository is it is a attribute. When you say object, right? Variables will come inside the method names. Anything that's defined at the object level or at the class level is either an attribute or a method. Variables are within the method. So this is a attribute. This is a property that returns this attribute. I cannot access prod repository from outside, from any other class, because it's private. But if I have to access the value of prod repository, I can access capital P prod repository because it's public, and in turn it gets the value of prod repository. This dot prod repository
So both
means
are same, right?
this is public,
That is
Yeah.
private.
this is
No,
private.
I'm saying values are same, right?
Value is same.
Same.
You're getting the value.
Do we need to make a private, make it public everywhere, right? Less hassle, right?
Make it public. The problem is, see, the reason why this whole concept came was, let's say I want to say if prod repository equal to 20 or greater than 20, and then I say I put this return thing inside this bracket. Let's say else return return null. Now, if somebody tries to access this .prod repository, only if the value is greater than 20, it will return this value. If it is not, it will say null. So you can kind of add some conditional statements, decide if you want to return the value, not return the value, or say that, or let's say that, I'm just saying if role equal to administrator, only then return the value, else say null. If anybody other than administrator is accessing, I will say it is null, it's not available. Only if administrator is accessing, I will return a value. So if I had just this one, instead of these two, if I just had like this, public, generic repository, prod repository. If I didn't have these two, if I didn't have these, if I had only this, then is it possible for me to put some conditional things? Everybody can access this prod repository, right? I'm saying that I won't have these. So I'll have just this. I'll have this. I'll have get set. I'll have just get. See what happens if I expand this guy, right? Prod repository equal to. So it defined underscore prod. Yeah, it defined underscore prod repository on its own, and then it said that this equal to this. So I mean, what I'm trying to say here is that this is equal to these two lines. So previously we had to write two lines to be able to define a property, a variable, and the property to access that variable. Now in the new versions of C#, you directly define the property and you say get set. So there's no more any logic within the get, any logic within the set. You define the property and you're done.
What is 2 question marks doing?
2 question marks is saying that if it is null,
Okay, null.
yeah, then do a new. Okay. If it is not null, then take this value. So coming back to our I'm going to get rid of this. So here the idea is that, so this private generic repository, prod repository, don't worry about the Angular thing for now. Then I'm saying public generic repository, prod repository, get. So if somebody is accessing prod repository, so who's accessing prod repository and who will access it? See in my home controller what I'm doing. .prod repository. So if I had made it private, they will complain. It's not available. So this is public. And what I'm saying is, if anybody accesses prod repository, or what this is saying is that if anybody accesses prod repository, if the value of small p prod repository is null, then do a new, or do this. If it is not null, then return prod repository.
Got it. If it is null, then return the prod repository, or it's new.
If it is null, then do a new generic repository, do this. If it is not null, then take the value of prod repository. Do this, and then it is assigned to prod repository again. So, okay, if I have to break this up, it means if it is null, then do this dot prod repository equal to new generic repository context. So, if null, do this. If not null, then
Do the second one. Got it.
this dot prod repository. That's what this line means. If it is not, okay, return.
And basically, it will return two results: the first one and the second one, right?
It will return only one, right? If the value is either null or not null.
Not null.
So if this value is null, then it will do this. Finally, it will return prod repository. If it is not null, then it will directly return this. That's what this line means. It's a little heavy. So now, what is this? Now, I think the key thing to understand here is, inside here we are saying new generic repository of TBL product of context. Now tell me, first time when I'm accessing .prod repository from here, right? If I say unit of work, we'll come to what is unit of work, but I mean that's what we're looking here. So it's a unit of work .prod repository. If I do this, then it will come into this code. Let's say prod repository is initially, what is the value of prod repository? Null, because nothing else, because it's null, nobody. So then what it will do a new generic repository and assign that value to prod repository. Now when I say assign that value, which value? Let's see what does new generic repository of table of context do? When I say new generic repository in angular brackets TBL product of context, if I say this, what happens? What is executed when I say this?
It will add a new item ID in the store.
I mean, even before that, right? When I say new generic repository, where does the execution go?
Not null. Then
Yeah, forget this. Yeah, forget all this. And just saying, if you say new generic repository, what happens? Where does the execution go? It will go to the constructor of this class, right? Okay, good. I mean, if you don't get it, you should ask. So let's say that I give you another example.
It will go on the private generic repository table product. Right.
Give me just 1 minute. I'm coming to you now, Manish. So I did prod 1 equal to new product. When I do this, what happens? When I say new product, what happens?
It is creating a new instance of the product.
Yes.
Product into
Where
prod
does
one.
execution go? So my product is here. This is my product. What gets executed first? See, when I say new product, it has to come to this class and it has to do something here. What does it do?
Gets it.
Well, it will run the constructor, right? Product. will come as soon as you say new of any class, it will go and run the constructor of the
I can
class.
search any constructor is matching like that. That will run.
It will hit that. Otherwise, it will run the default constructor. Default constructor doesn't have any parameters. Now, in our case, coming back to our case, we are saying new generic repository of bracket context. Do we have any constructor in the generic repository class? We do. Which is our constructor?
Public generic response.
What does the parameter it takes?
Stuff.
Inventory.
What type? Inventory entities.
Entities.
Is that what we are passing? What is context?
That thing.
Invent
Yeah, that the same thing.
Same thing, right?
Yes.
Inventory entities.
Yeah,
That's what we are
inventory,
passing.
Yeah.
So once I do this, if I pass this to the parameter as a parameter, then what does it do? This context is already a object now because I did a new. So I'm passing the object. That object will get assigned to INV context. And then DB set will also get created. So INV context and DB set will get live in the generic repository. Right? By doing that. Now once that happens in my home controller, .prod repository when I did, that got live. And then I'm saying dot insert. When I do a dot insert, now this, what is it returning? It is returning a generic repository. It's returning a generic repository class. Prod repository. Now in my generic repository class, I have a CRUD method. So when I do a dot insert and I'm saying of tprod. What is tprod?
It's a class, right?
It's a class.
Yes.
It's an object.
Yes.
Of which class? Product.
TI.
Now see the relation. T entity. It was a generic thing I did. I didn't say T entity is TL prod or TBL order or TBL vendor. We have three tables in the database. I'm not saying it is any of those three entity classes. So if you come here, there are three entity classes, right? I'm not saying when I defined my insert, I'm not saying what is the entity. Is the entity a TBL order? Is it TBL product or is it TBL vendor? I am not saying. It is a generic definition. That is what this T entity is doing. T entity, by defining it like this, we are saying the methods that are in this class will act upon an entity that can be any class. If I do this, L order entity, set.add, it will complain first thing, and if you come back to here, it will complain. It says that cannot convert from TBL product to TBL order. I am passing TBL order, TBL product, but here in my definition, I am having TBL order. So it says I cannot convert it. That's why I am making it generic. No, there's more. There is. Let me give you another example to make you understand. So in my unit of repository, I'm doing private generic repository TBL order repository. Okay. Now What do I need to do next? I'll say public generic repository TBL order repository. I just copy this for simplicity's sake. I don't need these guys. I just added this for understanding. What should be here? This dot order repository, because I am creating one for order now. And what should be here? TBL order. What did I do?
TBL order.
I created a repository for TBL order. Now, if I come here, if I say unit of work dot, there's an order repository. If I did not have this, say I had not defined this. If I come here and say unit of work, the work. There's no order repository. If I don't have order repository, I cannot do any of those operations. So if you have to do any operations, what you have to do is you have to come to the unit of work and define that repository here. What I mean by defining the repository, I'm saying that, hey, connect me to the corresponding entity, which is TBL order in this case, so that I can do all the operations that are there in the generic repository. And what are the common operations? Get, insert, delete, update. That's how the link works. That's how the connections work. That's how it is related. So that's how. So if you see, generic repository is defining the generic actions that you can perform on any table. Why am I saying any table? Because I am not defining a specific table name here. Entity. I'm not defining a specific entity class here. I'm saying T entity, template entity, any table. Very generic. It's generic because I can apply those 4 operations which are common for any table on any table, be it TBL order, TBL product, TBL vendor, tomorrow some other table. This, by doing this, I have defined a very generic class which will allow me to apply those 4 common operations, CRUD operations, to any table. And then in my unit of work, I am creating those repositories. I'm creating repositories so that I can use the generic repository to make CRUD operations on a specific table. Now, I need to be able to say which repository is related to which table. Otherwise, it will get confused. Otherwise, generic repository will get confused. If I need to tell generic repository, hey, each repository is related to which table. Generic repository is very generic. You need to tell it which table and which repository. So I am telling prod repository is connected to TBL product, order repository is connected to TBL order, and then I am defining this because if it is null, then you create a new one and give it to me. So that's what is happening here. Now I can say order repository dot insert or update or delete or any of those 4 operations, or get, any of the 4 operations we have defined.
Are these case sensitive unit of work?
Yeah, it is case sensitive. C# is case sensitive. And then I do an insert, then I have to do a dot save in the end. Dot save will actually push it into the database, will commit the changes. So where is that dot save defined? It is defined in the unit of work class. So what does that save method contains? It says context.save changes. What is context? It is our DB context. Because you need to kind of go home and understand these two files, generic repository, unit of work, understand how they are helping you insert the data into the database.
So everyone on the team, are they working on the .NET? Yeah.
We are here to work in future, Manish. If we were working, we wouldn't be here.
No, I'm just asking that level of understanding and how fast we can grasp.
Yeah, like we are also partners in crime with you. We are not studying every day, but yeah, we are trying, and we will get more aggressive now. In
I'm
terms
very,
of
very lazy. Like by the time I reach home, it's 7 o'clock. I'm tired. Can we take 5 minutes break? That's a very good topic.
Yeah, we can take a break. Yeah, sure. Let's take a break. Yeah.
Everybody is working, studying in home, I guess. So many hours they are putting.
Yeah, Manish. Yeah, lose your sleep over that.
No. Actually, I'm lazy. That's the thing. Otherwise,
Last 4 days I didn't touch.
That's the repository.
okay.
So I want you to try this and then come back with questions. You need to find time if you are, even if you are, I know all of you are busy, but you need to find time. Unless you push yourself,
Yeah,
you will not learn.
will not.
So I can't be like a schoolmaster and push you. So you all are grown up. So I can give you guidance. You have to push yourself.
Sure, we'll.
That was about how to save changes. Similarly, so that was the insert operation. Similarly, you can see when
It's charged.
you can see when there is also the, I was using a partial I was using a partial view. Let's talk about the partial view also here. If I go to product.cshtml, in the bottom, I added a div row, div class equal to row, and then I'm saying html.render action brackets saying products and home. So what this render action does is, let's say, if I do so basically what this means is that so you can see the syntax. So there are more than one method with the same name. There are overloaded methods. So the method that's commonly used is the one that takes the action and the controller name. So in our case, products is the action name and home is the controller name. So as soon as the page is loaded, a call will go out to the home controller, and it will go and hit the products action method. So for example, let me load this page. Prod 1. Let's look at the browser window. If I go to network, it will show me all the calls that are going from the browser to the server. I'm loading the page, the home page. So first, this is a query builder page. Clear up these calls. Now I'm going to the product page. So as soon as I hit this, then you can see that there's a call that went out for product, which is what is here. The products. We put a breakpoint. Yeah. If I click here, so it comes to the product, the product action method, and in the home controller. That's what's happening. So this is a partial. So what happens here is that if you see this method, sorry, not this one. Should come here. Yeah. The products was the action method. Yeah, products was the action method, and home is the controller name. Yeah. So you can see the return type. It says partial view result. So there are different. The different return types are: one is partial view result to return partial views. The other one is JSON result to return JSON, the response in JSON format. And then the other one is action result to return the whole view. So those are the three return types when we are dealing with ASP.NET MVC. Okay. And you can see here, I'm saying return partial view in brackets, the name of the partial view. What is the name of the partial view? Underscore products. Is there something like that in our application? Underscore products. Here, underscore products.cshtml. Let me double click that. Now, what does this contain? It contains table definition, the whole table, and then I have a for loop where I get the values from the model. What's model?
The class.
Which class? Model is whatever is here. So it's a list of.
It's the data actually.
It's a data. So it's the data that.
The data. Yeah.
So this is what is the model. So so what are we passing here? We're passing a list of products. This product is a list of products. That's what is in model. And then we are looping through it and showing the values. That is what we are seeing at the bottom. So what is the benefit of partial views? Partial views can be used, the same partial view I can use in multiple pages. It's like a reusable component. So for example, if let's say I have a header value, let's say I want to show, let's say score, right? Like I want to show the score of, what would be a good example? I want to keep showing something in all the views. So for so as I'm some common information that I want to display on all the views. Let's say that I want to know how many orders are waiting to be fulfilled, and I want to see that information in all the views. So I'll define a partial view, a very little small one, and I could have it to show either in the top of the view or in the bottom of the view. So I can just move this up, right? If I go to the view, the actual view, the mother view. I can take this and I can move it to the top. The partial view, I can just move it anywhere I want. So I keep it here, then it will render in the top instead in the bottom.
Okay.
So if I come here and I say, see now the table has gone to the top. It's pretty much you can show it wherever you want. If I want to show the table just in the first six columns, you remember the grid that we had, the bootstrap grid. So I can even try to restrict that, showing it to only the first 6. What I can do, I can come here, I can say div class equal to all 6. And I take this render,
stick it there,
and I can paste it there.
Render action is basically showing, right?
Render action is basically what it means is that
What do you want to show where?
it takes a set of parameters. What
Yeah.
it's saying is that this is the controller name, this is the action method name. It goes and hits it, and in the response you have to pass a partial view. So you can see here the response is a partial view result, and we're returning a partial view. So now it should show in the first 6 cells only, correct?
yeah.
So it's showing in the first 6 only. The remaining 6 are empty. So you can pretty much reuse. It is like a reusable component, right? You can move it around. You can use it in multiple pages. You see, we are not
like in multiple controllers, we can use partial views, right?
yeah, you can use it in multiple controllers.
Okay, so can you show where it is in that solution explorer, like partial view?
Yeah. So the partial view, you can define it in the same place where the other views are. So the standard is, or the good practice is, you put an underscore and then the name of the view.
Yeah.
So that indicates that it is a partial view. It's just a standard we follow. You can give pretty much any name to it. So I can call the same partial view. I can define it in. I can define one controller method for the partial view, and I can call it from 10 different pages, right? UI pages, and all the 10 pages can show the same view. My view code is fixed. I'm defining it only one time. A controller method is only one, but I can see it in 10 different pages.
Because it's partial.
Because it's partial. I can reuse it, right, across pages. Make sense? Okay. Let's see. Okay, I think the other thing is I want to touch upon is so we saw HTML dot render action for rendering a partial view. If you go to the layout page, there's a HTML dot action link. So an action link is used to define that also has a, it is used to define a link. So for example, right, let's say okay. So what I'm doing here is that just to give you an example. So in my, if you see the navigation bar, right, each of the navigation bar, let's look at on this. I increased the temperature. I made the 80. It's very warm.
If they get higher bill, tell them I didn't do it. It's something wrong with the thermostat.
Oh, they said they only gave me. Who gave me?
Yeah.
Told you.
It was freezing those days. Nowadays it's much warmer, so it's tolerable. Remember?
So see here, when I hover on the nav bar on all these different items, right? So if I go to home, see the URL in the bottom. It says localhost 58749, which is common, and then it says /home/contact. If I see at the layout page, home is the name of the link, so this name. Then contact is the action method, and home is the controller name. This is another syntax that we have in ASP.NET MVC that can be used to show a link. So if I take this and I put it in our just to show you how it works, I'll put it in the products.cshtml file. So I'll define another div class called 6. I do a HTML render action. Right? Now I come and I refresh. Breakpoints. So I see a home here. See, it looks like a link, right? So that's why it's used for. So if I click on home, if I click on this button again, it goes to home/contact. Goes to the contact page. Get it? Any questions? So we saw HTML.renderAction and HTML.ActionLink. So the HTML.action link, it takes a few parameters. The first parameter is name of the link. Second is name of the method, action method. Third is name of the controller. Fourth is any route values. These are route values. You remember in Ajax, when we are in jQuery, when we are doing an Ajax call, we pass some values, right? Values you can even pass using from here, using action in the action link. So you can say, let's say home contacts. I'll give you an example. Let's go to home controller. What's the contacts? Contacted. I'll just say string name. Okay. And put a breakpoint. Come here and say name. And say Akshay Kumar. I'm sounding like Akshay Kumar.
No, I don't. He's okay. Now he's better. No, I like what do you call him? Thalaiva? Hey, did you watch that Bahubali movie? Oh my God, what's wrong with you guys from South? What is there in that movie special effects? How can you sit through it? You also saw it?
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, you guys, I don't know why. What is in that movie? I couldn't stand it. Except special effects, what is that? Tell me.
I like part 1 better than part 2.
Yeah.
But it's not a movie. It's just
Part 2 is where they have that love sequence and all that. Yeah, part 2 is also good. It's a good romantic movie.
Really? I couldn't sit through 15 minutes. I was about to take it.
What happened to your romantic side? There, Shalini?
No,
Both
but
movies are
the
both
costume.
movies are good once you have.
And then I shut off this thing.
Yes, see, Manish had some comments. Go
I-
ahead, Manish.
What I'm saying, both movies are good once you have your GC and comfort zone and full-time jobs.
Everything you relate to GC. Oh my God, you are another Indian.
I don't need GC, but I'm telling you.
See how happiness is related. Somebody's relating happiness to this. Somebody's relating happiness to this. Happiness should not be related to anything. The moh maya chhod do bhai.
Full-time job, I can say. Comfort zone.
I'll give it a try again. Bahubali. Let me see.
Nice.
Oh my God, guys.
Okay, so if I click on home, so if you see, if I put the focus or my mouse on home, you can see the URL, the way it formed. Now name is being passed as a parameter. Name equal to Akshay Kumar. I click on this, on contact, in the name I got Akshay Kumar. Just like we can pass values from jQuery using Ajax, you can also pass values using action link. That's what we just now did, right? Make sense?
Yeah. But there's no page, Akshay Kumar, right?
Action.
Yeah, there's no page Akshay Kumar right now.
Just like.
So page will fail.
Okay.
But
So that's the, yeah, go ahead.
it's not a good practice, right? The controller name is home and the link name is home. We should change the name, right? Otherwise you'll get confused.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I want to talk about, I wanted to start Angular, but before that, I want to touch upon ASP.NET Web API. The ASP.NET Web API is, see, if you see with ASP.NET MVC, what is the presentation side? What is the presentation side?
View.
View. It's a .cs.html.
Yeah.
Right? With ASP.NET MVC, there is no view. It doesn't have a presentation side. It's the API. It's exposing a set of APIs. So what will be the view? It will be Angular, or it will be. It can be a jQuery also. So, but there won't be like ASP.NET MVC views. There's no views. You have to create your own HTML and then make Ajax calls, then get a response and show, or you have to use Angular and make a call to ASP.NET Web APIs, get a response and show. I want you to see the difference between both the approaches. Okay. ASP.NET MVC is good, but when it comes to a lot of other devices, like smaller devices, it may not work because it will work because it is HTML, but it becomes heavy because there is more processing to convert that CSHTML to HTML. Moreover, it is not all devices will support that rendering as rendering using ASP.NET MVC. Now with ASP.NET Web API, let us look at some slides. ASP.NET Web API is similar to ASP.NET MVC. When I say similar, it has the routing. It has instead of views, there's no views. It has APIs.
API.
So it has controllers and action methods.
The difference is it uses URL. This one uses HTTP. Web API, right?
So HTTP is a common protocol for communication from the browser
to the
server. The server side can be ASP.NET MVC or it can be Web API. But I want to understand like your point. So when you said that, like Can you tell again? What were you saying?
Like in Ajax, we give a URL, right?
Yeah.
And we get the data in the form of JSON.
Yeah.
But in Web API, we used HTTP format, right? And then we get the data in the form of JSON format. But we are using HTTP protocol. That's what it said.
Even Ajax is using HTTP.
Okay.
The HTTP is the underlying protocol to communicate from browser to the server side.
Because URL is basically a link, right? It's HTTP only.
It's HTTP. The protocol is HTTP. If you see here,
So the web API means it will return result in form of HTTP, right?
Yeah, the request and response is HTTP. So if I come here to your point, I click on home. Here, if I click on home. So here, you see this. This is a request that went. The request URL is a HTTP request. Even if I click the link within the page, internally it is a HTTP request that's going. Okay. Always HTTP request when it comes to a browser. All right. Now with ASP.NET MVC, ASP.NET Web API, it is another framework. It's a lightweight framework as compared to ASP.NET MVC, and it's more. It's built to keep multiple devices in mind. Like when the say multiple devices, it could be an iOS device or a app, iOS app, or it could be an Android app, or it could be a browser on the phone, or it could be a tablet, or it could be a desktop. Any device should be able to call the API. Now, in terms of the life cycle, it's a. I mean, this one is like it has a lot of information in it, but the idea is the call originates from a web browser or from any client, and it goes to the route. From the route, it gets redirected to the controller. From the controller to the action method. Action method sends a response back, and it goes back. That's what, in summary, it means. So this is all the internal implementation, how the dispatcher works, how the routing dispatcher works, and HTTP controller dispatcher, it dispatches to a controller. You really don't need to understand so much. I think the high level is to understand that it goes, the routing that we define will route it to the controller, from the controller to the action method, and vice versa. It goes back the same route. Okay, I'll show you an example. It's not clear. I'm going to load ASP.NET Web API application. So how do you create a ASP.NET Web API application? That's another thing. So you say new project, go into web, then go into .NET Web Application, ASP.NET Web Application .NET Framework, and say OK. I'm just showing. Okay, then it gives you the different templates. You select Web API, and then you click on OK.
Okay.
So I already have a page created. I'll just load that. So I have a Web API sample page. I created the same way that I showed. Now you can see if you compare the differences between Web API and ASP.NET MVC application. I'll load ASP.NET MVC application. So you can see the controller in the ASP.NET Web Application. It derives from a word called controller. But if you go for a Web API application, it derives from API control. And then you can see that there are action methods. Of the yeah, it's there in GitHub. All this I will be uploading in GitHub. So you can download it from there. So all these are methods that are there in the controller, just like we have it ASP.NET. If I open the project solution, on the project solution, if I go into app start, there's a file called webapi.config.cs. So this has it defines the routing. What it says is, if your URL is in this format, API/control/something/something/something, then it considers this as whatever comes after the API, whatever comes after that first /, it takes that as a controller. Whatever comes after the second /, it takes as an action. And then the next one is the value. So the ID is an optional thing. Now, if I run this, pretty similar to MVC. Yeah. The difference is that there is no views in here. MVC, ASP.NVC has views. Now let's see if I have to run this. Right? Now if you see, before we go to run, this one doesn't have a layout page because it doesn't have views, right? It's bare. It is simply it's giving you options to define APIs. So it's all APIs that you can define using ASP.NET Web API.
Do we need to do Web API?
You need Web APIs. Web APIs is the new one. ASP.MVC is the previous version. Web API is the new one.
Like to find a job for the newbies, right? Do we need it? I think without Web API.
You need ASP.NET Web APIs.
Oh, really?
Okay. So if you have to use Angular on the front end, then your backend with Angular works better if it is, when I say backend, your web server with Angular works better if it is ASP.NET Web API. Okay?
Okay.
Now let me run this. On. Now, our Web API is running. Now, what does it mean? I want to go in there and start hitting my APIs. How do I do that? Now, if I open my controller name is order controller. I want to hit get all orders. What do? I go to the browser, say /API
Get all orders.
/order, which is the name of the controller, and then I call the method get all orders. What did you get back? You got some data, right? Tomato soup, pack of butter, bag of oranges. How did I get that? I was returning an object called Walmart order. What is Walmart order? Walmart order is a. What is Walmart order? What is order?
It's a class.
Array. Order is an array.
Walmart order is an array.
Yeah.
Order is a class. Walmart order is an array of order class. Make sense? So what are the values in the array? Walmart order array?
All the
1, 2, 3.
All these values. This is one value. This is one order. This is second order. This is third order. I'm returning the whole Walmart order as a response. So that's what I'm seeing on the browser. Because this doesn't have a UI. So I'm just using my browser to see the output. Ideally, you would, when we go to Angular, we will make an Angular call and get the response back and show it on the Angular UI. Okay. Now that's get all orders. Now what do I have? I have some more things here. I have a get specific order. Specific order, it says. What should I do? Specific order. Anything else should I do? What does specific order, get specific order take as parameter? Takes an ID, right?
ID.
Yeah. So if I have to specify the ID, what should I do? I have to pass the ID. Slash
Question mark.
1.
Question mark.
Well, in this case, remember that in Web API, you see the Web API config.cs, see the format. So your ID is your parameters. This is your format. So it gave me the first order. So if I come here, it says specific order. It's saying if order equal to null, return not found, else return OK of order. What is order? Okay. In the Walmart order, I'm doing a first or default value where x dot order ID equal to ID. There are some new things here that I will introduce you to called lambda expressions and called link to server, link to SQL. So there are some new concepts here. So what is Walmart order? It's an array.
Array, yeah.
What I'm saying is if I do a dot on Walmart order, I get a set of methods that I can apply on Walmart order because Walmart order is an array. What are the methods I can apply? Concatenate, contains, count. I can get a count of the array. Or I can do a dot first or default. Dot first or default is another method. First or default. And in bracket. Once I put that, then what does it take as a parameter? It takes a predicate. What is a predicate? A predicate is a condition. Now, what is the condition? How do you define a condition? You define a condition by saying x, and then you put this notation equal to greater than, and then x dot. When you say x dot, it gives you all the possible field names in the Walmart order. The order Walmart order is a array of the order class, right? So all the fields of the order class it gives you. X dot. I'm saying order ID equal to, which is double equal to in C#, the ID. ID is the parameter that is passed. This will return only one value because we are saying the first value. There's also a parameter, there's also a method called dot first. The difference between the both is if it doesn't find any value that matches, then it will give an exception. If I say off first or default, then if it doesn't find a value, then it won't give an exception, it will give a null value, it will return a null. That's why we use first or default. First or default. And then I'm checking if order equal to null. Let's put a breakpoint, right? Put a breakpoint, then and I'm going to run this. Slash order slash specific order slash 1. It came here, hit this. What's ID is 1. We passed ID. What's Walmart order? Walmart order has 3 entries in it because that's what we stored, right? Here, up here. Now I go forward. I do a F10. What does order contain? Order contains 1 entry now, tomato soup. That's what matched. We said order ID equal to ID. So for tomato soup, the order ID is 1. 1 matched 1, so it returned that record. Make sense? I go, and it shows the value. So let's say I give 5.
Null.
It should show null, correct. So if I go forward, now you see what is the value of order? It's null. If it is equal to null, then I'm saying return a not found. It's a not found error. It's a 404 not found error. Make sense? Now, your question may be like, hey, this action method is get specific order, but I'm saying specific order. Where is the get? See, there is a way you can make the action method action name more friendlier. Like this name can be anything, but I can, if I say my action name, method name is, let's say specific order type, then it will honor this. So this may not be the actual name of the method, but it will honor this. Why do we need this? See, sometimes you don't want to tell the world what is the name of your method, because your name of the method is getting exposed in the browser, right? When I hit it. So if I go and run this again, so I'll say slash, I'll say get specific order. If I say specific order /1 is not found, it cannot find it because we now specific order type, we made it specific order type. I'll hit it. So I don't want to expose to the world that my actual method name is get specific order. I just want to give some dummy name. Right? Then I can use this, and then it comes here and it hits it, runs it. It gives 1 value. Now get 0 order. Well, this doesn't have anything. Then I have 20 minutes for cache control. Get HTTP response. So these are all different methods. Create response. Now, Web API can. I think we are. We just over time. Give me like 5 minutes. I'll wrap it up. So Web API can return any of these values. It can return a void. It can return a HTTP response message, which we just now saw. Or it can return a HTTP action result. Yeah, click here. Or it can some other type also. Like you don't have to work like this one right here. If I do a get all orders, it returns IEnumerable order of order. IEnumerable is nothing but again like a list. IEnumerable, queryable list. They're all collections. So that's the introduction to Web API. Any questions? Since we went in a lot of detail in ASP.NET MVC, Web API is a lot similar to ASP.NET MVC. Difference is that it doesn't have a UI. It has APIs that you can define, and then we'll have to write Angular, get a response from, and show it on the UI. What we will see in our next class.
Next week, are we taking off with Christmas? Yeah. Yes. She seconded my opinion.
Let's take off next week, Ashwin.
If you want to do class Saturday, I know you're very hardworking. You will definitely come on Saturday.
I will be in Toronto, so chances are less.
Oh, okay. So when do we want to resume? Are you guys back on the 5th?
Yeah.
5th is good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This Tuesday. Oh, sorry,
Saturday.
Saturday. So 2 weeks break, and then we will resume on 5th. Yeah. Don't work in your week long holidays. Enjoy.
You need to push us for the job, Ashwant. Otherwise, you know.
Yeah, I'm coming to New Jersey. Let me book my tickets.
You know, Ashwant's brother is in New Jersey.
Yeah, I can tell him too.
He can come and check your homework also.
See, but on a serious note, you have to do it. See, my idea, I will tell you what my idea is. My idea is that you have one page for query builder, one page to add a product, one page to add a vendor, one page to place an order. 3 tables, 3 pages, and query builder. Query builder, what will finally it will do? It will go and based on whatever query you form, saying, hey, where my vendor equal to 1, where my product equal to 2, it will do a combine. It will go and combinedly it will pull data from multiple tables. So each of the individual screens will go and update each of the individual tables. The query builder will go and bring data from all the 3 tables and show it to you. So 4 pages is what we have to build. So we have 2 more classes after today. So by I think the next 2 classes. So next class I plan to cover Angular, and then after that one more class. I think we'll keep it like open for questions and any practicals that we want to do. But the goal at the end of it is to build a web application that has 4 pages.
So query builder, product, then
Vendor, and then order.
Order, query, builder.
So we have layout of query builder and product.
And product.
Right?
Yeah.
These are 4 pages, right?
4 pages. So now you know Bootstrap, you know HTML. It is the same thing that will get used in Angular. In Angular, the communication, the way to get the data is different, but otherwise the layout of the page is the same. So similar kind of a AJAX call will happen in Angular also, just like we're doing a jQuery call, it will happen in Angular also. So
it's a good time. 2 weeks is a good time.
Yeah, take 1 week vacation, 1 week you can work.
Yeah.
So how long it will take, like do the homework, like 4 hours, 8 hours, all the 4?
Don't go to Toronto, do your homework.
We need to work hard.
I'm just teasing you, Manish. Don't mind, please.
No, I have to drive. There's no way, but I can do from there also. That's not a problem.
So for your for the next class, when we meet the next time, just like we did product, I want you to do vendor. I'll send you the screenshot for vendor. So when we meet next time, if you can do your give me a working product, vendor, and query builder UI, just the UI, right? We don't have any CRUD operations happening with query builder yet.
We want
Vendor, product, and query builder using ASP.NET Web, ASP.NET MVC. Now, so I will upload this sample that so I want you to use the generic repository and unit of work and be able to save the information. I think if you are able to do this, then I think you are at a level where you can take an interview, take interviews now. This is a complete end-to-end that you will be doing. So enter in the UI, send it to the controller, from there push it to the database using generic repository and unit of work.
It's the same concept people are using everywhere in the provider hosted app. Exact same thing what you showed: database, tables, CRUD operations. Use.
Okay. Yeah, and if you're stuck somewhere or if you have a question, then ping me, send me a message. and we can get on a call and look at what problem you're facing, and we can resolve it. Not a problem.
Yeah, if we do the homework, then we'll have a lot of questions. Otherwise, we don't have any questions, right?
Yeah. See, I want you to do it, because only when you do it you learn.
29.
Unless you do it, it becomes difficult to get a job, right? I mean, the whole purpose of this course is so that you can get a job.
Yeah.
These technologies.
Hey, you party girl. When will you study?
That's